Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Michael Johnson. Welcome to 5 Steps to Ultimate Health for Women. Optimal thyroid health, balancing female hormones, and ideal adrenal function, and much, much more. So, I'm Dr. Michael Johnson. I've been in private practice as a board-certified chiropractic neurologist in Appleton, Wisconsin since 1983. I'm the author of this book, You Can Beat Thyroid Disorders Naturally. This title up on YouTube, if you go to Dr. Michael Johnson and you plug in that title, you will see my video has almost 800,000 views. So I get emails from all over the world. I'm also the author of this book, What Do You Do When the Medications Don't Work? And more importantly, I suffer from Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I suffer from MS, which is an autoimmune disorder. They're both autoimmune disorders. And I also suffer from something called Derkham's disease, where I have fatty tumors under my skin. They're just benign tumors. More importantly, my wife suffers from Hashimoto's. 2 of my daughters suffer from Hashimoto's. Both of my daughters suffer from PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. My mother-in-law was placed on HRT, hormone replacement therapy. It caused her to have and develop breast cancer. When she went to her physician looked her in the eye and said, well, of course you got breast cancer. We put you on hormone replacement therapy. What'd you expect? What an ass. What a total jerk. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of women are treated by their physicians. They're dumber than a box of rocks. The physician knows everything, but that's turning the cycles around. The tables are turned with the internet. My mother-in-law also suffered from severe anxiety, and my wife has suffered from anxiety. My sister-in-law, her wife, suffered from anxiety and depression, and I've helped her. I'm living it. So when you say, who are you to speak about women's health and 5 steps to ultimate health for women? Where do you get off? Like I said, I truly am living it. So we are going to cover a host of beginning at the beginning, ending at the end, and putting everything in the middle that needs to be there. Now, my son and I are going to put this up I'm in my office, you can see that now, but with PowerPoints and fancy and all that stuff, but I just want to get this information out. Like I mentioned, my thyroid video on YouTube has almost 800,000 views. We have 5 kids, just not my 2 daughters, but my 3 boys. Our youngest is on the autism spectrum disorder. He has Asperger's. And my wife worries about him. And that's the thing that I noticed with all of the women that I've taken care of over the years. They'll put everyone else first and themselves last. And they just take all the stress on. And there is a difference between men and women in how we handle stress. And I see that with my wife and my son, who's now 16. So we had 4 kids, and then we had an extra, which is wonderful. So this was many, many years ago. I don't know how long, but I came across a course given by Dr. Datis Kharrazian. It's called Functional Endocrinology. Studied it, lived it. As you can tell, I'm living it. And then I came across a gentleman about 2012. So I've been in practice since 1983, just so we have the record set. Dr. Bob Marshall, he was the founder and CEO of Premier Research Labs. Brilliant man. Much of what I share in my book, You Can Beat Thyroid Disorders Naturally, and on the YouTube video, came from Dr. Bob Marshall. I mean, I always give credit where credit is due. And yeah. So I had a patient just this past Thursday, and this is what prompted me to come in on a Sunday and give you this information, because I don't think it could wait another minute. And she had contacted me Wednesday. She's from Milwaukee. She has cancer of the uterus, and endometrial cancer, to be specific. And she called our office. Normally what will happen is my staff will say, well, email Dr. Johnson. He can set up a time to speak with you. He's very busy. And that's the truth. I mean, like I said, I get a ton of emails every day. Yesterday, I just spent 5 hours Saturday answering emails. Now, granted, the Masters was on. So it wasn't as bad. But yeah, I like golf. I love golf, actually. So I have this patient, and she insists on seeing me, so I put her at the last appointment that I have on Thursday. We work in our office 4 long days, Monday through Thursday. We have a nurse practitioner. We do stem cell. I'm not really going to discuss that in any length here. But stem cell therapy helped me with my MS, and that's why we got into it. But she drives all the way up, and she's seeing a physician, supposedly a natural healthcare physician, a physician nonetheless. And he has her on a progesterone cream because her estrogen was too high, he said. That's why she developed the cancer, which could be true. But now he's got her on this progesterone cream, and he ran some labs on her, and her progesterone was 25,460. That means nothing to you until you look right on the sheet and see that the normal value shouldn't be above 3,000. And I looked at her and I told her, you can have cancer and die from way too much estrogen, but you can have cancer and die from way too much progesterone. It's a teeter-totter. It's a balancing act. So for all of you women who are menstruating, and that's a whole nother pet peeve that I'll talk about in a minute, people who don't pronounce menstruation correctly, I've seen physicians call it menstruation. It's there's a U in there. Menstruation. So yeah, this is what happens when you're ovulating. Your estrogen is higher, and then when you're menstruating, your progesterone's a little higher. And there's this teeter-totter, this balance. So that's what I mean by balancing hormones. But she wouldn't have any of it, because you know what? She's feeling really good. And she was feeling bad before, and she's feeling, and then why are you here? She basically wanted me to confirm that she was doing the right thing. And if I have another video on YouTube. It says you can beat cancer naturally, and that has 350,000 views. And again, I get emails from all over the world on that video. And granted, I made these videos, and some of them in 2012, but they're the truth today. The truth is the truth is the truth. And so, yeah, she wanted me to confirm that she's doing the right thing, and she was taking a few supplements, but she hadn't been tested. And really, that's what I'm talking about here with 5 steps to ultimate health for women. I'm going to lay it out for you. So it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of detective work on my part. And sometimes I'll get people say, oh, here's my blood work, tell me what to take. You're going to see that's only a part of it. And, you know, I see comments on Facebook, and I see a lot of women struggling. And they're in support groups. And you know what? When you're struggling, you should be in support groups. But here's the thing, there's no magic supplement out there. And what works for one patient may not work for another, or may not work for a third or fourth patient. Does that make sense to anybody? Because sometimes I think I'm speaking to the wall. Treatment plans have to be individualized. So here are the 5 steps to ultimate health for women. Number 1, complete blood work. Complete, and we're going to go over it in detail. Number 2, complete genetic testing. Now, some practitioners out there, some natural healthcare practitioners, functional medicine, whatever you want to call them. I mean, there's functional endocrinology, there's functional neurology. All it means is that we are taking a little bit more of a natural approach. I'm not anti-medicine. We need medical doctors. You need medical doctor if you break a bone or you have a heart attack or stroke. Medical doctors shine when it comes to acute care. But when it comes to chronic care, chronic conditions, medicine drops the ball. So blood work's number 1, complete genetic testing is number 2, and I'm not just talking about the MTHFR gene defect, which I have, we'll be getting into. I told you I'm living this. You're going to hear me say that throughout. Methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. Say that really fast. So it's more than that. It's complete hormone testing. So I just had a gentleman in my office this past week. I had my hormones checked. Okay, what'd you have? Testosterone. That's all they checked. Men also have other hormones besides testosterone. Women have other hormones besides estrogens. And estrogens is a group. There are a number of estrogens. So that's hormone testing is number 3. Number 4, trigger testing. So what's triggering your condition, if anything? Is it an infection like Epstein-Barr virus? Is it a bacterial infection like H. pylori? Is it a chemical? I live in Appleton, Wisconsin. Big paper industry, a lot of PCBs, big farming area, dairy farms, a lot of DDT. Chemicals can trigger it. So trigger testing. And finally, number 5, lifestyle and diet. So let's get into number 1, complete lab testing. This is so vital because medical doctors will not do this. And folks, there are lab values and there are functional values. And functional values are a lot narrower than lab values. Let me give you an example. Normal lab value for AST and ALT, which are your liver enzymes, and your liver is so important. We'll cover it in a minute. 0 to 40, that's a lab value. The functional value is 10 to 26. So you could be at 38. Your physician say, you're fine, you're normal. Then why do I feel like crap? Well, because you're outside that functional range. And you know what? We do need to support the liver. So the first thing we're going to look at is glucose. Listen, your brain and nervous system needs 2 things to survive: fuel and activation. Fuel is oxygen and glucose. So if you have abnormal glucose levels, and normally it's 85 to 99, so if you're at, say, 75, you have hypoglycemia. You need to address it. We need to supplement, or you need to be eating something at least every hour or 2. I mean, if there's a way to handle it through food, I'd rather handle it through food than supplements. Now, if you're above 99, 100 to 126, it's called insulin resistance, pre-diabetes. And 127 or higher is usually diabetes. Now, that's not the only measure of blood glucose. That's just a snapshot when you had your blood work taken. There's something called hemoglobin A1C. Maybe some of you know it, some of you don't. Ideally, we'd like it at 5 to 5.5. I've seen it extremely high. But that in and of itself doesn't mean anything, because your adrenal glands can have a lot to do with blood sugar. Your liver can have a lot to do with blood sugar, even your stomach. And I'll talk about it here in a minute. So, glucose. Abnormal glucose findings in your blood work can cause inflammation. And we want to decrease inflammation as much as possible. So the next thing we're going to check is blood urea nitrogen, creatinine, blood urea nitrogen, creatinine ratio. What does that look at? Your kidneys. Your kidney function is very important. What does it do? It filters out all the bad stuff along with your liver. In Chinese medicine, kidney pain or kidneys relate to chronic lower back and leg pain. I'll tell you this story. I said I like to golf earlier. There's a golf pro at our club, Ryan. Won't mention his last name. And I see him hobbling up to the range, and I go, "What's up with you?" He goes, "Oh, my back's killing me. I've been to 3 chiropractors and 2 physical therapists, and they want to do surgery." I'm like, "Come to my office tomorrow. I'll check you out." I check him out, and his kidneys aren't functioning the way that they should. I put him on a kidney support, and his back pain immediately goes away. Why? Well, in Chinese medicine, your kidneys are related to lower back and leg pain. Your liver is related to neck and shoulder pain. I can't tell you how many patients with chronic pain that I've helped just addressing their liver and kidney function. Adrenals. I just talked about the adrenals. Yes, it has to do with blood sugar function. Your adrenals are your stress glands. They sit right above the kidneys. And if you have trouble getting up in the morning and getting going and getting out of bed and you need a lot of coffee, you probably have an adrenal issue. So we just don't check them in the blood work, but we look at adrenals in hormonal testing. So in the blood work, I'm looking at potassium, I'm looking at sodium. That's going to tell me how your adrenals are doing, but I'm also looking at it in the hormonal testing, and we'll get to that. But for sure, if you have trouble getting up in the morning, or you are taking a nosedive at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, it's probably your adrenal function. You probably have adrenal fatigue. And that needs to be addressed. Your stomach. Here's what I see with a lot of natural healthcare practitioners. They run something called an ALCAT test. And I'm not against that test. But let me just hang on a minute. Let me give you my thoughts. I've seen patients come into my office. They've had the ALCAT test run, and they're allergic to 30 foods. And a lot of those foods are good for them. They're healthy foods. And it's because, well, you got leaky gut. Let me tell you this, and this comes directly from Dr. Robert Marshall. What nobody is addressing, what nobody's talking about, is hypochlorhydria, low stomach acid, low HCl. Nobody's addressing that. And what I find is that the minute we increase the HCl in the stomach, the food allergies go away. So after we increase the HCl by having the patient take a digestive enzyme with the meal, and we use PRL's Digest here, and it helps you digest proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Then after the meal, you're mimicking the body, and I have the patient take HCl and what's called HCl activator. And as we increase their stomach acid, like I said, their food allergies melt away. Now, I still recommend people get off of grains to begin with. I still recommend they get off of dairy, because dairy contains a protein casein, not really healthy for you. And you've all heard of gluten, I'm sure. A gluten-free diet isn't a fad. But think of a dog. A dog can eat another dog's defecation and still be healthy. Why is that? Because they have so much HCl in their gut. That's why. So, yeah, I'm not big on the ALCAT test until down the road, maybe a few months down the road. But you've got to increase the HCl. People who have acid indigestion, people who have acid reflux, GERD, it's because they have too little HCl. And as a result of too little HCl, when they eat, they're not digesting their food, and that creates lactic acid, and that's what reflux is. Think about this. 20% of T4, inactive thyroid hormone, is converted to T3, active thyroid hormone, in your gut. So, it's not just too little HCl. What if you have a parasite? I had a severe abdominal parasite when I first had my blood work checked. How do I know? My eosinophils were through the roof. Eosinophils are part of the white blood cells, or they make up the white blood cells. Eosinophils, mine were 26.4. Normal is 0 to 3. It's because I was eating sushi. I quit eating sushi, it dropped down to 8. And then I cleared the parasite. Oh my God, it was horrible clearing that parasite. Parasites don't want to leave. And I don't eat sushi anymore. You know, it could be H. pylori, it could be E. coli. There could be an infection in the gut that needs to be addressed. So maybe we need to do a stool sample. Maybe not. It depends on the patient. There is a gut-brain connection. So people who have brain fog, they're depressed, they have anxiety. It could be because of their gut. It could be multiple issues, including their gut. There's more serotonin, there's more dopamine in your gut than there is in your brain. And finally, 80% of your immune system is in your gut. We check the liver. I talked about the liver earlier. The liver has a vast array of functions. It is one of the most important areas or organs in the body, I should say. I actually have a handout that I give to patients, just telling them everything that it's important for: bone formation, muscle formation, bile production to help you digest foods, enzyme activation, metabolism of fats, carbohydrates, proteins. And I'll have all of this information included with this video, either up above on Facebook or down below on YouTube, wherever you're watching this video. Storage of vitamins and minerals. I mean, it's crazy how important the liver is. And yet, medical doctors don't care unless it's so bad you need a liver replacement. I'll give you a story. I had a gentleman come, chronic pain, severe pain, and liver enzyme normally is 10 to 26. He was like over 200. He had been popping so much Tylenol that we had to address that in order for him to get better. Here's another thing in regards to your thyroid. T4, inactive thyroid hormone, is converted to T3, active thyroid hormone, 60% in your liver. So 60% in your liver, 20% in your gut, that's 80%. So a lot of times women will have a conversion issue. They're not converting T4 to T3. And the key to that is addressing and supporting liver and stomach. Bilirubin. Bilirubin is a marker for your gallbladder, and I have so many people come to me and say, well, I don't have a gallbladder. I don't have anything to worry about. Yes, you do. Because the gallbladder, God didn't give you any extra parts. Can you tell I'm a little passionate about this? I'm trying not to scream and yell. But sometimes people are so brainwashed with the medical model until they themselves have a health crisis and medicine isn't helping them. And they've seen 15, 20 different doctors. And now all of a sudden they're at my doorstep. And I'm just not talking they've seen medical doctors. They've seen functional medicine doctors. They've seen nurse practitioners. They've seen everybody. And so if you don't have a gallbladder, if they removed it, no, you need to support what was your gallbladder forever, the rest of your life. You need to take a supplement every day to support that. God didn't give you any extra parts. We look at red blood cells. Why? Because that relates back to the liver. We look at white blood cells. Why? Because we're looking at those infections, as I mentioned with the eosinophils earlier. We look at cholesterol. Folks, you need cholesterol. Your brain needs cholesterol. You need cholesterol to make hormones. And we'll be discussing that when we get to the hormone part of the 5 steps to ultimate health for women. You need cholesterol to make vitamin D. You need cholesterol, like I said, it's so important for your brain, it's not even funny. Do you know that people die, they have heart attacks, and they have normal or low cholesterol? Do you know that? If you have high cholesterol, what's the reason? Are you not converting it over? So we look at cholesterol. What amazes me is so many people are on statins. Medical doctors will drive down the cholesterol to 140, 150. And as a result of that, the woman isn't making estrogen. The men are not making testosterone. And so they will put them on hormone replacement therapy, and that causes cancer, just like I shared with you with my mother-in-law. That's insanity. Cholesterol isn't going to kill you, folks. Let me repeat this. Cholesterol is not going to kill you. Inflammation will kill you. That's why we look at C-reactive protein. That's why we look at homocysteine. That's why we look at uric acid. That's why we look at fibrinogen. We look at markers for inflammation. What about vitamin D? If you have a serious health injury, folks, your vitamin D level needs to be at 80 to 100. Not 10 or 15 like I see a lot of people. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy when I see people suffering the way that they're suffering, and they don't have to. Now that doesn't even cover all of the blood work that we do. That's just the highlights. Number 2 in the 5 steps to ultimate health for women is genetic testing, and I mean complete genetic testing. Just recently, I read an article by a guy named Mark Anderson. Mark Anderson, you have to understand his background. He works for Standard Process. Standard Process is a nutritional company. It's a supplement company. It's a very good company. But Mark Anderson, the title of his writing, his paper, his thesis, was the MTHFR scam. And he just goes to rip Dr. Ben Lynch. Now, Dr. Ben Lynch is one of the people that I learned about genetic testing from. Also, Dr. Kendall Stewart, who's a friend of mine down in Austin, Texas. Also, Amy Yasko. I don't look at any one person as a guru. I look at, I am a vessel, fill me full of knowledge so I can help myself, my family, and my patients. Well, Mark Anderson just rips apart Ben Lynch. Why is that? Well, because Ben Lynch has a very successful supplement company. It's called Seeking Health. Yes, we do use some of his products. And he's growing so fast that Mark Anderson and Standard Process don't like that. So all it is a, for lack of a better term, a pissing match. I don't know how else to describe it. And it's unfortunate because people are going to read that article from Mark Anderson and say, well, this is a scam. I don't believe this. Oh my gosh. See, I'm living it. I have the MTHFR C677T homozygous genetic SNP. And that's what they're called. They're called SNPs. Some people call them mutations. Some people call them variations. I don't care what you call it. It's real. And that has to do with methylation. It has to do with your liver function. Folks, every single system in your body requires methylation. Your reproductive system, I'm getting a little tongue-tied, your digestive system, your respiratory system, your circulatory system, your brain and nervous system, your immune system, every single system requires methylation. That's as simple as I can put it. And it's really important because if you have the MTHFR gene SNP, like I do, homozygous C677T, I've lost 70% of my ability to methylate. As a result, my cholesterol is genetically lower. That's not good. And you'll see why here shortly. Well, you just don't test one genetic SNP. You test all of them. Now, I used to use 23andMe and then plug it into another company for the data called Livewello. Well, 23andMe upped their price and lowered the amount of genes that they're testing. So I'm not using them anymore. I don't recommend that you do. Right now, there's a couple other options that I'm looking at. And I haven't really decided on which one, and as soon as I do, I'll let you know. I mean, there's Dr. Stewart has a genomics test. There's AncestryDNA.com. There's DNA supplementation has it. There's a lot of different variables here that I'm really looking at because this is so important, and I'm going to tell you why. The MTRR gene mutation has to do with B12. So if you're really fatigued, it could be a combination of MTHFR and MTRR. What about supplementing for MTHFR? I've had people react severely, myself included, when they started heavy supplementation for methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. That's the enzyme. And so what the fix is B12, and there's 3 different, or actually 4 types of B12. Only 3 are really necessary for the body. One is very bad for you, cyanocobalamin. But I've seen people and myself have bad reactions to supplementing with methyl tetrahydrofolate. It's L5 methyl tetrahydrofolate. I mean, I had one lady that she thought she was going to have a stroke. And the reason is because of inflammation. So you see, you have to take a holistic approach. You see, all of these tests need to be done, not just one in isolation, if you're really, truly going to have ultimate health. These are the 5 steps. Well, here's another genetic SNP, the GAD1 SNP. That has to do with anxiety, depression, insomnia. How many of you have insomnia? Oh my God. And see, I'm living this. I thought my insomnia was due to my MS, and I thought I was destined to live a sleepless life the rest of my life. And if you're not sleeping, you're not healing. But I had this GAD1 gene defect, and kudos to Dr. Kendall Stewart. He came up with something called ProGAD Enhancer. It has been lights out for a lot of my patients suffering with insomnia, but they have the GAD1 gene defect. Now, that's not the only cause of insomnia. It's not the only cause of anxiety, but holy moly, has it helped a lot of people. Many of my patients who suffer from severe anxiety and had the GAD1, we were supplementing them with GABA. We're not anymore. We're using ProGAD Enhancer. This is what the genetic GAD1 gene does. It allows you to convert glutamate, which is excitatory, to GABA. When you have that SNP, you're not converting glutamate, which is excitatory, to GABA, which is inhibitory. So as a result, you've got so much glutamate, you're just jacked up. And that's why you have the severe anxiety. That's why you're not sleeping. That could be why you're having depression. Now, depression could be another genetic SNP. It's called MAOA. MAOA. That has to do with serotonin. Serotonin is your happy neural brain chemical. It could be MAOB, which has to do with dopamine. Dopamine allows you to enjoy life. Dopamine comes in with tremor and movement disorders like Parkinson's. It can also have to do with focus and attention. The FUT2 gene has to do with gut function. And so if you have that genetic SNP, again, there's that gut-brain connection. And honestly, you can be taking HCl just like I told you earlier, but it might not be working. So that's why people, again, going back to the ALCAT test, which isn't a bad test, but why don't you increase the HCl? And if they have an FUT2 genetic defect, fix that first. Get to the cause. Does this make sense to anybody? We're only starting. The DAO gene. I have the DAO gene. I have MAOA and B. I have GAD. I have MTHFR. I have MTRR. I'm living this. My family's living it. Can you see why I'm so passionate about it? DAO gene has to do with histamine. Do you have a lot of allergies? Have you developed adult onset allergies? Do you have asthma? Do you have general congestion? You probably have the DAO gene SNP. You're having problems with histamine. COMT. Here's a great one. So there are clinics out there, they're checking the blood work thoroughly, they're checking all the hormones, but still there's an issue. Well, COMT has a lot to do with estrogen metabolism. What do they should be high in, especially as I mentioned during ovulation? Estrogens. And there's three types, three majors. There's a number of estrogens. I'm not here to give you a course in endocrinology. We're just going to keep this on a level hopefully you can understand. But, COMT, if there's a gene SNP, you're having problems with estrogen metabolism. That has to be addressed. It also is in regards to neurological function, focus, ADD, ADHD, concentration. You see how all of these things need to be tested, and it's not hard. The test for DNA, the genetic testing, is a salivary test or a swab test. SOD. SOD, and I have this, has to do with mitochondria. Mitochondria are the powerhouses in your cells. So if you're extremely fatigued, you could have an SOD SNP. You could have mitochondrial SNPs. That's SOD2. SOD1 has to do with neurological aspect, your nerves, your brain. And then SOD3 has to do with your brain and lungs. So you may need to supplement to support that. And this is what I like about Dr. Ben Lynch, and this is where I got this from. He is a big believer in pulsing nutrition. By pulsing, he means, take a bunch to get things situated, take it every day, but then once you have the situation under control, you can pulse it. You only need to take the supplements 2, 3, 4 times a week. You don't need to do it every day. And that's what I move toward. I agree with him so much. It's a supplement, folks. It's not a replacement. I have so many patients come into my office. They have a shopping bag full of supplements, everything that comes down the road. And again, I think support groups are great on Facebook. But the problem is, it's just thrown out there so easily. Oh yeah, well, I had this, take this. Or I have this, what do I take? And they're trying all these different things. You need to be tested. I personally feel you should not take a supplement unless you've had complete blood work, unless you've had genetic testing, unless you've had hormone testing, unless you've had trigger testing, unless you've cleaned up your diet and changed your lifestyle. Does that make sense? Because a lot of natural healthcare practitioners, and some of them are medical doctors and nurse practitioners, all they're doing is replacing medications with supplements. And you can't do that. You have to test to see what's going on. Because there's an NOS SNP. That has to do with heart. There's a CBS SNP. That has to do with glutathione. If you don't know what glutathione is, it's the master antioxidant of your body. There's a VDR SNP. I have it. So I am genetically predisposed to not absorbing vitamin D. So it's important that I take vitamin K with the vitamin D. The complication arises when I have women who are taking blood thinners. Then you can't take that vitamin K, but you better be taking vitamin D. But I can't absorb vitamin D. See that conundrum? There are mitochondrial SNPs. If you're suffering from fatigue, those need to be addressed. Two of my favorite mitochondrial supports presently are PQQ and NADH. I'll have information. Let me write it down. I'm going to tell you all this stuff, and I want to make sure that I get the information down. And finally, there are genetic tests for gluten. Honestly, what I tell all my patients, look at, we're going to give you some HCl. You obviously have HCl issues. So what I'd like to do is increase your HCl, but I still need you to avoid gluten, dairy, and soy. You should also really watch your refined sugar intake. Eliminate it if you could. You should eliminate caffeine. I did it for 6 months, and I love coffee. I made a video. If you go to my YouTube channel, Dr. Michael Johnson, I made a whole video on how much I love coffee. And organic coffee, because it's full of pesticides and herbicides. And so, yeah, and watch your alcohol intake. So that's the starting point. So we've covered blood work in our 5 steps. We've covered complete genetic testing, complete blood work. Now we're going to talk about hormone testing and complete hormone testing. As I mentioned, I just had a gentleman in, and all they did was test his testosterone. How do you think your body makes hormones? Anybody know? You make it from cholesterol. So you have cholesterol. And then the body takes that cholesterol and makes pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is truly the mother hormone. It's the one that all other hormones are made from. Some people say it's DHEA. It's not. Because pregnenolone, if you have a person with Alzheimer's or dementia, or you're getting brain fog, your memory isn't so great, you could be deficient in pregnenolone. So pregnenolone goes on to make DHEA over here and progesterone over here. Stay with me. I'm cutting a few steps just to make it simple, but you'll see where I'm getting. Now, DHEA comes down and makes testosterone and estrogen. And guess what? Men have estrogen and women have testosterone in their system. The problem arises when you have too much. Again, this is a balancing act. Well, that's one side of the equation, your sex hormones. Over here, there's progesterone. So pregnenolone from cholesterol goes to DHEA, and here we are at progesterone. Progesterone goes down and makes cortisol and cortisone. Those are your stress hormones. Now, maybe you've heard of this, maybe you haven't. It's called a pregnenolone steal, where you're under so much stress, all of that pregnenolone is going over here to your stress hormone and not over here to your sex hormones, estrogen and testosterone. Now, there's 3 types of estrogens. There is E1, which is estrone. That's called the estrogen of menopause, of older women. And I know I'm generalizing, but folks, again, I don't need to give you a course in endocrinology. I just need to give you the basics so you understand your body. If you have questions, I'm giving you my email. I answered 5 hours worth yesterday. I'll answer yours. E2 is called estradiol. It's the hormone of younger women. Women have this hormone from the time they start their menstruation to about late 30s, early 40s, once you start getting into menopause. I'll tell you a quick story. And I still laugh at this. My wife and I were 43. We had 4 kids. My wife comes to me one day and she says, I think I'm going through menopause. Okay, why do you think that? She blah, blah, blah. And I said, I think you might be pregnant. She was pregnant. We had Jake when we were 43. So, yeah. And finally, E3 is estriol. That is the hormone of pregnancy. So when people say estrogen, they're talking about estrogens, and they should all be tested along with progesterone, along with testosterone. And you know, there's another form of testosterone. If you are losing your hair, I see this all the time with women, and they'll come to me and I'll say, well, my ferritin, it's my ferritin. Yeah, but I've seen women with low ferritin increase their ferritin to normal levels. Their hair is still falling out. The reason their hair is falling out, the reason your hair is falling out, is DHT, dihydrotestosterone. When you got it and you're a woman and it's too much, your hair's falling out. Men who have a lot of it, it's unfortunate, but that's why they become abusive. And remember, cholesterol also makes cortisol. So when we're checking your hormones, we're doing complete tests on your stress hormones, cortisol and cortisone. Now, there's 3 types of stress. Physical stress, lifting, twisting, bending. Emotional stress, your family, finances, work. And chemical stress, an improper diet, coming in contact with chemicals. So when we test hormones, there are 3 different types of tests. We do at least 2 of those: blood, urine, and saliva. Go to DutchTest.com. Maybe you're aware of it, maybe you aren't. This is the urine test, but they have some great videos explaining these things. I really love the Dutch test. But we also utilize blood work because there are some hormones that are better tested through blood. For instance, pregnenolone. You're better off testing that with blood than you are with urine. So we use a number of labs, not just one, because we want to get at the causes. So number 4, the 4th step, we've covered 3 so far: complete blood work, complete genetic testing, complete hormone testing. And if you just do urine, it's not complete. You need to do blood or perhaps saliva. But complete trigger testing. What is complete trigger testing? Well, we're going to look at chemicals. Like I said, I'm here in Appleton, Wisconsin. Paper industry is big. There's a lot of PCBs. Farming is big. There's a lot of DDT, even though they haven't used it for 40 years. There are chemicals in the supplements you're taking. Folks, I see this all the time. People are taking cheap supplements because it's all the same, right? It's all natural. No. You know, this is what Dr. Bob Marshall taught me at Premier Research Labs. And what he taught me was the fact that many supplements are synthetic, and that's why they're so cheap. That's why they're so inexpensive. That's why Walmart can sell them for less than what I can purchase them for. And you get what you pay for with supplements. So many B vitamins are coal tar derivatives. A lot of vitamin D is from sheep's wool. We have a handout, and I'll have it down below if you're on YouTube, and up above if you're on Facebook, on excipients. Excipients are fillers, binders, and glues like magnesium stearate. Magnesium stearate is not good for your immune system. So you need to avoid excipients. You need to avoid chemicals. We test for heavy metals. So, folks, I'll tell you right now, if you're not seeing a natural dentist, if you got one thing out of this video, and hopefully you're getting much more, but one thing, see a natural dentist, please. Go to IAOMT.org. I believe that's the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. I believe that's what it is. IAOMT.org. Find a natural dentist, please. Yes, I've had all my mercury fillings. They're not amalgams, they're mercury fillings removed. So has my wife. So have my children. That's how much I believe in what I'm saying to you. An infection in the mouth can affect your health adversely. You know, we need to check for candida, parasites, Lyme. I love the IGeneX test. The Western blot test for Lyme, it's only 30% effective. You need to look at fungus, mold, H. pylori, Epstein-Barr, EMFs. EMFs are a factor. So what is triggering your body to react the way that it does? You have to do the detective work. You have to get to the bottom of it. Is it chemicals? Like plastics. I'm going to have some information down below on plastics and what it does to your body. I don't want to spend, I could spend hours on these topics, as you can tell. So we've covered 4. Here's number 5, lifestyle and diet. And this is the one that you can do the most to help yourself. Change your diet. Stop eating junk. Stop eating crap. I mean, I've had patients, they're drinking a 12-pack of Diet Mountain Dew a day from the time they get up till the time they go to bed. Aspartame is a neurotoxin. All of that crap is bad for you. And now there's some controversy. And keep in mind, I've been in practice since 1983. I've pretty much seen it all, but I haven't, because just when I think I got it nailed down, whoops, all of a sudden everybody's going keto. Keto, keto, keto. In my opinion, and I'm sure you can listen to me right now and you're saying, but I lost 40 pounds on a ketogenic diet. True, but it's not a normal homeostasis. It's not normal for your body to be in ketosis. What I like is, I like autoimmune paleo. I really do. I've had people lose 40, 50 pounds on autoimmune paleo, and they didn't starve themselves. The problem with autoimmune paleo is you can't have any white potato. What Dr. Bob Marshall spoke to me on is potatoes aren't a bad food. Cold potatoes. If you have high uric acid levels, maybe your husband does, maybe you do, juicing potatoes is one of the best things that you can do. Cold potatoes are great hormone boosters for the body. I mean, I like to use food as much as possible. Instead of supplementing, if you have an MTHFR genetic SNP, why don't you eat a lot of green leafy vegetables? Instead of taking so much calcium, why don't you eat a lot of green leafy vegetables? There's folate, which is natural. And no, you shouldn't consume folic acid. That's synthetic. And a lot of OBGYNs are pushing folic acid now to prevent birth defects. Take folate, not folic acid. So I like autoimmune paleo. If you want some potato salad once in a while, or you want to help your hormone production naturally, juice some potatoes and drink it. What about the food allergies? Well, we kind of discussed that earlier. Why don't you increase your HCl, and then let's check for food allergies down the road. So change your diet, go to autoimmune paleo, eliminate grains, eliminate dairy, eliminate soy. So you're only eliminating 3 things from your diet, not 30 or 40. I've seen that many with people. And then let's check it after we increase your HCl. Am I making sense to you? My brain's starting to hurt. Oh, geez, oh, Pete's, yeah. All right, I get this question a lot. Get it emailed. What about apple cider vinegar? I read a book in 1987 by a guy named Paul Bragg. Don't know if you know him, but he was one of the first guys to ever have a health food store back in the 1930s. Paul Bragg wrote a book on apple cider vinegar. I love raw apple cider vinegar with the mother, not the refined stuff. Get that book. Paul Bragg also had another book, The Shocking Truth About Water. Now it's been republished, and I think it's called Water, The Shocking Truth That'll Save Your Life. Either way, it's like $10. Go to Amazon, get those two books, read them. Because in it, he'll show you all the crap. Paul Bragg was talking about crap in water and heavy metals long before they found lead in the water in Flint, Michigan. And if you think for a minute Flint, Michigan is the only city in this country with a lead problem, folks, you've got your head stuck in the sand. Like I said, you should try to eat green leafy vegetables as much as possible. My favorite dinner is a big, huge salad. I have that at least 3 or 4 times a week. Organic if possible. We try to eat organic as much as possible because there's so many pesticides and herbicides and chemicals you don't even know about. Monsanto is coming out with so many chemicals, I can't keep up. Monsanto is not a food company, folks. It's a chemical company. So try to eat organic. And you can say, I can't afford organic. Well, here in Appleton, Wisconsin, there's a grocery store called Aldi. There's another place called Woodman's. They have very reasonable prices on their organic goods. Walmart is starting to carry organic food. People are sick and tired of all the chemicals. As a woman, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but cosmetics contain a lot of chemicals and hormones. So does perfume. I, as a male, have not used cologne in forever. I use essential oils. I like frankincense and myrrh, to be honest with you. I figure if it was good enough for Jesus, can't go wrong for me. Deodorants. Deodorants are loaded with aluminum. I use something called Jungle Man. Some of my female patients use Jungle Man. Find a natural deodorant. Find a natural lotion. The chemicals in lotions and cosmetics and deodorants are called EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals. It's not good. Plastics. Folks, you try to avoid plastics as much as possible. One of the companies that I really like, besides PRL, and this is Premier NADH, I mentioned that earlier, is Food Research. All of their supplements come in glass. PRL has a special packaging too that they use. So yeah, try to stay away from plastics as much as possible. And I'll have information on it, what it does to your body, down below if this is YouTube, up above if this is Facebook. All right, we're an hour in. We don't have much more left. I talked to you about excipients. Try to avoid excipients as much as possible. Let's talk about diet. We've addressed it. Autoimmune paleo, meat, fish, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. Salt. There are some out there now saying if you have a thyroid disorder, avoid salt. Do not avoid salt. Do not. But get rid of the crappy white salt, and even some Celtic sea salt is bad for you because they process it through nickel screens. The only salt that I recommend is pink Himalayan salt because it contains a lot of minerals that your body needs, and your body needs salt. Along with salt is pepper. Fresh ground pepper. It's a natural anti-inflammatory. You need to be consuming good fats like avocado and coconut oil and olive oil. Use olive oil in your salads. Use avocado oil in your salads. Use coconut oil for all of your cooking. Trust me, we do it at our home every day. My wife lives this stuff. My wife is a food Nazi. She will only eat at certain restaurants because she knows about GMO. She knows about all of the organic and the chemicals and pesticides and herbicides. Man, she was on this thing long before I was. And once I started seeing changes with my patients, man, okay, I'm on it. Grass-fed beef, free-range chicken, eggs. I think eggs are one of the most perfect food. And you can say, well, I'm reactive to eggs. I had my ALCAT test and I'm reactive. I can never eat an egg. Increase your HCl, folks. Seriously. And then retest it a few months down the road. But they have to be free-range eggs, wild-caught salmon. Eat organic as much as possible. I love coffee. Yes, I gave up coffee for 6 months, but I drink organic coffee. There's a place here in Appleton called Cafe Nutrition. I drop my son off at school. I drop Jake off at school. And I go to Cafe Nutrition and get a coffee with a shot of espresso. It is so good. I don't really drink. I don't smoke. I don't have a lot of vices, but I love coffee. And there's a place in Appleton called Happy Bellies. And some days I'll go get a muffin. My favorite is chocolate chip and raspberry. But I don't do that every day. Moderation, folks, moderation. A lot of thyroid patients will ask me about cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower. Folks, if you have enough stomach acid, you can eat those. That's based on people with hypochlorhydria. Same with nightshades. Seriously, my brain's starting to hurt. Can you tell the questions that I get? Yeah, I do. And I'll give you my email. I think I have it here somewhere. But yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. Oh, there goes my little man. So, folks, yeah, let's do a recap. I know this is getting a little long, but let's do a recap. And I list all of these symptoms either down below or up above. And so weight gain, women having issues with weight gain. I've had women in my practice, they could fast for a month on water, they would still gain 5 pounds. And they're exercising daily. Why is that? It's usually related to the estrogens. So they're low in estrogen, it's stored in the fat, the body's not going to give up that fat till you increase the estrogen. Could be COMT. COMT, genetic SNP, has to do with the estrogens. Could be MTHFR. Could be MAOA and MAOB. Do you ever eat emotionally? You get stressed, and I do. I'm not going to lie. You know what my favorite go-to is? McDonald's. Number 2, Culver's. I'm not ashamed to say it. When I get severely stressed, woo, yeah, that's my go-to. The junkiest of the junk. I can tell you what I get. 2 cheeseburgers, a fillet of fish, fry, and a big Coke. Emotional eating is going to happen if you have MTHFR, genetic SNP, MAOA, MAOB, which has to do with serotonin and dopamine, or the GAD1. And I got all of those. So as long as I'm supporting those SNPs nutritionally, I don't have any issue with emotional eating. But if I'm not supporting those SNPs, if I'm busy, I get away from it, woo, yeah. And I'm I'll be the first to admit it. Anxiety and depression. So we talked about MAOA has to do with serotonin, MAOB has to do with dopamine, the GAD1 SNP, that has to do glutamate excitatory. You're not converting it to GABA inhibitory. That also has to do with insomnia. MTHFR, Hormones can cause anxiety and depression. You got to balance those hormones. Remember, estrogen, progesterone balance, pregnenolone, cholesterol. We're covering it all. Insomnia, I just mentioned. Usually it's GAD1. Could be a problem with the gallbladder or liver or lungs. Listen to this. I got this from Dr. Barb Marshall at PRL. It works. If you have trouble falling asleep, it's usually an issue with the gallbladder. Why? In acupuncture, there are times when the organs are functioning at their peak. So the gallbladder functions at its peak from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. From 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., it's liver. So a lot of people say, I get up 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, boom, my eyes are up and I can't fall back to sleep. Could be a liver problem. Could be a liver and a GAD1 problem. Could be a liver and CMOT. This is why you do the testing. And so if you're waking up between 3 and 5, it's usually a large intestine issue. That's where the HCl comes in. Hair loss. And I think I'm an expert on that. But hair loss in women, it's no joke. I mean, this, oh my God. I can't tell you how many women I've had in my office since 1983 in tears because their hair is coming out in clumps. This is serious. 99.9% of the time, it's a problem with high testosterone, specifically DHT. We've talked about that earlier. It could be ferritin, but I've seen women increase their ferritin, their hair is still coming out. It could be COMT, because remember that has to do with estrogen. It could be all of the above. You have to do the testing to find out. But one of the most traumatic events for any women, I mean, I'm not being facetious. I don't mind not having hair. I haven't used shampoo in 20 years. Yeah, so it's not a big deal. But for women, it's traumatic. And something can be done about it, but you have to get tested, and it needs thorough testing. Fatigue and low energy. Well, we've talked about your thyroid. Thyroid drives metabolism. Could be your adrenal glands, adrenal fatigue. Could be a mitochondrial problem, mitochondrial SNPs. Could be all of the above. You need to get tested. Brain fog. Well, could be MAOA, MAOB, GAD1, a genetic SNP. Could be pregnenolone. I mean, if you have low cholesterol, you probably have low pregnenolone. That's affecting your brain function. PCOS, you need everything tested. I told you, I'm an expert in it. My daughters have it. Infertility, same thing. You need to be thoroughly tested, and you need to cover all 5 steps. We're talking about ultimate health for women. We're talking about optimal thyroid function. We're talking about ideal adrenal function. And you can see it's been much, much more. Chronic pain. Chronic pain can be hormone related. It can be GAD1 because it's excitatory. It could be, as I mentioned, a kidney issue with lower back and leg, a liver issue with neck and shoulder pain. There has to be a reason. There has to be a cause. What about heart disease? What about high blood pressure? Well, that can be hormone related, can be genetic related. You need to look at the blood work. The same thing with high cholesterol. What about if your cholesterol is 350, 400? I mean, it's so interesting. When I was first in practice, 300 or below was normal. And then the more drugs that they had, the lower it would become. Now, as I mentioned earlier, they're driving it so low, 110, 130, 140, and they won't take people off statins. So they're not making hormones. So if you have really high cholesterol, it's probably because you're not going downstream. Remember I talked about pregnenolone, and then DHEA, and then progesterone. So there's something in the hormones there that needs to be checked. And every time that I tried to skimp around it and not tested hormones, which was a huge mistake, we didn't help people with their cholesterol. So, yeah. Autoimmune disorders, I've told you I have that. Diabetes, fibromyalgia, you need the tests done. Thyroid disorders, here's the questions that I get, especially with emails. I've had my thyroid removed. I still feel like crap. What do I do? Well, it's because you're autoimmune. You had your thyroid removed because your immune system was attacking your thyroid because all of the things we've mentioned, maybe the chemicals, maybe the infection, something changed the makeup of your thyroid where your immune system was attacking it, and your body created a goiter to stop that attack. I mean, does that make sense? So if you've had your thyroid removed, you still are autoimmune. That needs to be addressed. You still have hormonal issues. You still most likely have genetic SNPs. Should I take iodine? Yes, your body needs natural sources of iodine. Get it from the food you eat. Eat a healthy diet. PRL has a product called Xenostat. It contains natural iodine. You may hear some natural healthcare practitioners talk about if you have Hashimoto's or an autoimmune disorder, you shouldn't take iodine. They're exactly correct. You should not take synthetic iodine. And that's a lot of iodine out there. So we've covered the gamut. One thing I'm going to tell you to do, please, go to this website, ohhashimotosuccess.com. There's a video there. Watch the video. It's called The Thyroid Answer. In The Thyroid Answer, I go over in detail how the thyroid works and how all those genetic SNPs relate to it. My email, if you have a question, is mljohnson@askdrjohnson.com. That's mljohnson@askdrjohnson.com. Will you help me help others? Please share this video with your family and friends. Share it on Facebook. Share it on social media. Share it wherever you're at. Like this page. Subscribe to my YouTube channels. I'm putting out, look at that. I'm putting out videos almost daily. It's Dr. Michael Johnson. Please go there, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Help me help others. I am willing to help you. There's just a few things more I want to cover, and then we'll wrap this up. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm pretty passionate about the work that I do. As a result, I have a lot of critics out there. I have MDs who literally hate me. I mean, MDs have been calling me a quack. Well, it's funny. When I first started in practice, I was a quack. Then I could help people get out of pain, and I was a good guy. And now I'm back to being a quack because I'm doing all of this nutritional work, and we do stem cell therapy. And we do utilize stem cell therapy in our practice for Hashimoto's. If you go to OH Hashimoto's, Hashimoto Success, right there, you'll see a video on Hashimoto and stem cell therapy. You don't have to watch that. Watch The Thyroid Answer. Watch You Can Beat Thyroid Disorders Naturally. It's a 2-hour video. But I have my critics. I have thyroid advocates who just hate me. And you know what? If you're making a difference in the world, you're going to catch static. I accept that. I don't like it. I don't like being called bad names. Who does? I'm human. I have feelings. But if you look at the whole picture, I've been in practice since 1983. There were some years we'd see 1,000 new patients. So I have treated, since 1983, tens of thousands of patients. I dare you to go on the internet and find a patient, not someone who came in for a consultation, but a patient who has a complaint about me. Because I've always given more. I've always under-promised and over-delivered. I've always tried to follow the golden rule, which is try to treat others the way you would like to be treated. So last August, there was a lady who just wigged out on me. She came in here with her parents who had COPD. They were looking at stem cell therapy. Her and her sister were just attacking me viciously. So I pushed back. What does she do? Everywhere she could, anything she could dig up on me, she tried. I forgot to pay my $150 fee in 1996 to get my license. I was reprimanded because I forgot to pay a fee. She dug that up. I mean, she was just so vindictive. Holy moly. I just told you yesterday I spent 5 hours of my life answering emails trying to help patients. I didn't get paid a dime. So when these people come to me and say, oh, he just wants the money. Right. That's 5 hours I gave to other people that I could have been spending with my wife and family. We do work with reduced fee patients. We do work with indigent patients. We just can't have an office full of them, folks. We wouldn't be here to help other people. So, yeah, we have a 3-year waiting list. We can only accept a few of those patients a month. And we do accept them. So I don't know what else I can do to convince people that I'm totally committed to my patients. My patients who are in this office know that. See, this is hard work. I've just laid out everything that you need to do to have ultimate health as a female. You need to get the testing done. There's no other way around it. I do work with local patients. I do work with distance patients. If you don't live in the Appleton, Wisconsin area, I work with patients all over the world via Skype and or the telephone. You're welcome to email me and I can send you information. But I'll tell you up front, I don't accept everyone. If you watch the end of my You Can Beat Thyroid Disorders Naturally video, I say right up front, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 meaning you could care less about your health, 10, you will do anything to get better. I only want those that are 8 to 10, that are committed to their health. This is what drives me crazy. I had a COPD patient come in for stem cell therapy last week. He's still smoking. Why are you here? And we're going to help you, and we can help you with your COPD, but you're still smoking. Stop smoking for 6 months, and then we can talk about stem cell therapy, but I'm not going to accept you as a patient. I'm not going to take your money because you haven't committed to change your lifestyle. I'm going to help you. We're going to work together. We're a team, but you have to be committed. So, go to OH Lung Success. Watch the videos, okay? My email again, mljohnson@askdrjohnson.com. You're welcome to email me. I try to get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. If I don't get back to you, just shoot me another email. Please like the Facebook page. Share the video with your friends. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Michael Johnson. And I want to leave you with this. One person I haven't talked about was my mom. So we'll talk about her here. And the only reason this came up again for me is a friend that I went to high school with, Ken Jones. He lost his mom recently. And he put up this beautiful tribute to his mom. And I thought it was great. So my mom grew up in Bayfield, Wisconsin. We have a second home in Bayfield. And I feel connected to my mom in Bayfield. My grandfather, who was a wonderful person, Bumpa, Ole Holm, Lawrence Holm, owned a pharmacy, owned a drugstore. And my grandma Grace and Bumpa, wonderful people. The problem was they were alcoholics. They weren't abusive alcoholics, but they were alcoholics. And my mom lived with that from a small child until my grandfather, Bumpa, lost his drugstore because of all the drinking. So she had a pretty tough life. She gets married to my dad, and she has myself and my sister and my brother, and she's miserable. And my mom and dad get divorced when I'm in 7th grade. And she marries one of my dad's best friends, Ronnie Bennett. Ronnie Bennett's probably one of the greatest guys I've ever known. And just a wonderful person. So my mom and Ronnie, they really love each other. Problem is, they're both heavy smokers. So my mom develops lung cancer. This is 1996, January 1996. She has extreme fatigue, loss of appetite. Those are the cardinal signs of cancer, folks. Extreme fatigue, loss of appetite. I tell my brother and sister she needs to get checked. I tell Ronnie, they get her checked. The MDs don't know what's going on. So in December or September of 1996, my mom was 61 years old. They finally find the cancer. She has lung cancer. She's very medically oriented. Sorry. So she's very medically oriented, and she doesn't want anything to do with anything natural. That's how I came up with my cancer video, trying to help my mom. And yeah, it was hard. It really was. And so she lives another 9 years. July 4th weekend of 2005. We're up in Michigan. My mom's in the hospital. She's not doing well. We go to see her. She's in a lot of pain. I didn't know it. But she starts giving Ronnie a bad time. I'm like, hey, lay off Ronnie. He's just trying to help you. And yeah, she wasn't doing well. I took my wife and kids. We go to the hotel we're staying at. I think to myself, I didn't handle that well. I need to go apologize to my mom. I go back to the hospital. They've taken her up to Duluth, Minnesota. She's gone downhill. I'm like, she's been through tough times before. She's lasted this long. I'll just apologize the next time I see her. There never was a next time. So, my point is, when I saw Ken's tribute to his mom, this brought this all back up. And, excuse me. So, my mom's on her deathbed. It's Saturday. And my brother and sister are up in Duluth. And Ronnie goes to my mom. He says, Mary, is there anything I can do for you? She said, yeah, you can tell me you love me. In all the time that they had been together, Ronnie had never told my mom he loved her. And I asked him about this afterward. And he said, I don't feel I have to tell anybody I love them. I show it. Actions speak louder than words. That's true, but yeah, you have to say it. So my advice in closing this, and I'm going to edit some of this out. My advice is tell the people you love that you love them. If you have kids, tell them that you're proud of them. If you get one thing out of this video, one thing, tell the people you love that you love them. Sorry, I got a little bit emotional. It's funny. For those of you who've lost your mom, a song you hear, something you see, it will remind you of her. And like I said, I go up to Bayfield so I can be closer to her. So, yeah. I'm Dr. Michael Johnson. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I know it's gone a little long, but you can email me. My email is mljohnson@askdrjohnson.com. That's mljohnson@askdrjohnson.com. Take care.